Springfield this afternoon. We'll be back in town again this weekend, but anyway, I always appreciate a good reason to say I need to be back home. So let me just toss out a few ideas, and then I'm open to any questions that you have. I'm running for comptroller because I think I can do a better job than the state is currently receiving from the current comptroller, particularly in the areas of accountability and ethics. Accountability first for state funding. There's some transparency there. The area where we need transparency and aren't getting it is in the area of expedited payments. Right, we pay our bills so late that a lot of people want to get their bills scooted ahead to the front of the line. Right now there are no public standards for that, and there's no transparency in terms of who's asking for those expedited payments and who's getting those expedited payments. Without transparency there, it leads Illinoisans to a conclusion based on our history as Illinoisans that there might be something going on there that's amiss. That's why transparency is important, to say here's the standards, here's how we're using them, look for yourself. So accountability for state funds, and then in a role that the comptroller's office is almost unknown for, even though there's real potential there, accountability for local government spending too. Every local government unit turns in an annual financial report to the comptroller's office, everyone but school districts. So every mosquito abatement district, every city, every library district, every TIF district, you name it, they all, or should all, turn in a report annually to the comptroller's office. Some places don't. The Tribune has had a great series on the village of Harvey, which hasn't turned in an annual financial report for the last 5 years. And what a surprise to find there's a lot of corruption going on, a lot of problems.
I used to live in that area, and I'm not too surprised to hear.
Yeah, exactly. So I, number one, want to be much more aggressive about pursuing those annual financial reports, and then much more aggressive about using the information. All that information coming in, and it's not being used to benefit the office holders, the citizens, the journalists who are looking at these local government units. We can use that information and aggregate it, set up benchmarks so that library districts can look and say what's spending per capita of library districts across the state. So you can have sort of a sweet zone, and if a citizen looks at it and says, yeah, we fall within the reasonable range, then maybe that's one double check that we're doing the right thing. But then where there are districts that are spending in a large way or indebted in a large way, that's important information for them to know too. It may be important enough for the comptroller to say this is something that we want to have our auditors look at. This is something we want to have the Auditor General look at. But I think we need to make that kind of local government spending accountability something that's easier to access for everyone. And finally, ethics, which I've been talking about a lot, just because that's something I do and something I appreciate. Going back to when I was little, Dad would disclose his income way before that was the thing, and would disclose my babysitting income, right, as a teenager. So this is something that's not new to me. I disclosed taxes and a detailed financial statement when I ran for mayor of Carbondale. I've been doing that every year as lieutenant governor, and I want to continue that. So that's something that I think is important for me. I've been working on passing legislation to update the Statement of Economic Interests, which all Illinois office holders file, which theoretically gets to disclosure, but doesn't really actually get to disclosure. It's a 40-year-old form that hasn't been revised in that time. So anyway, I've been talking about ethics a lot. I think it hasn't been coming to the forefront until, oddly enough, my opponent was heard on a videotape at a press conference with the governor asking for help in getting her son a job at SIU. Later in Springfield, asked by a couple of reporters, she said, yes, she was trying to get his resume to the governor to see if it fits. And she doesn't think that's clout. I think that kind of defines clout. So anyway, I'm interested in improving what the office is doing in terms of accountability and ethics, and looking forward to getting started with it.
the comptroller's office, I think there's a lot of confusion about that, what it does versus what the treasurer does. Is there really a need for two offices? Why don't you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, and I talk about that a lot when speaking out in public because gosh, not many people know what the comptroller does, right? The basic explanation that I give to folks is the treasurer brings in and invests the money. The comptroller is the person who uses the money to pay the state's bills. We have them separate in Illinois because of Orville Hodge, among other things, and because of smart practices in terms of, in one way or another, separating out those two functions. Any organization is wise to separate those two functions, to have some checks and balances. I think it's possible to combine those two offices with maintaining the right checks and balances. To do that, to combine them, will take a constitutional amendment. Something that has been talked about for a long time, and that's all that's happened is talk. What I would like to see is not waiting for 4 years down the road to start saving money. I think we can combine functions of the treasurer's office and the comptroller's office, functions that aren't the substantive functions. So personnel records, transportation, all the other things that go on that are similar from one office to the other. Let's have one combined area. We can do it through an intergovernmental agreement. It won't take a constitutional amendment, and we can start saving the money. There is this figure of $12 million that's talked about in terms of savings. I've never seen anything to tell me how that adds up, so I'm deeply suspicious of that. But basically, I want to get to the savings there, and I think I can get there in a pretty quick and practical way.
They would create a service department that both offices could access?
Right, right.
Okay, I understand.
Yeah, so right now I'm the lieutenant governor. We work together with the governor's staff on a lot of things, right? We don't have to duplicate every one of those functions. There's no reason why the treasurer and the comptroller can't do the same. Well, you know, I've talked with you here before, Gary, about our commission, our Classrooms First Commission, and what we recommended in terms of school consolidation, facilitation, and a category that we call virtual consolidation, where two distinct governmental units can save money by working together. That's exactly what I'm talking about doing here with these two offices.
You hinted at the real live ramifications of these government entities not filing their reports is nothing.
Right.
But legally, what should, on the books, what should the ramifications of them not doing that be?
Yeah, from what I understand, the comptroller's current practice is to send follow-up letters to entities that don't file their report. The comptroller's office actually has the power to go and engage in an audit and prepare that report and build the unit of government to do that. So there's that option. I think there's just the plain old option of getting more attention to the issue, right? If as comptroller you know that Harvey hasn't turned in their annual financial report for 4 years, you work with them to make sure they have the technical ability to get it done, to make sure there's not some kind of challenge there that you can't fix easily. But absent that, then you say, well, I'm coming to your office next week, Tuesday, to accept your annual financial report, and I'll be there with reporters. So then either we get the annual financial report or we get information about a unit of government that's not doing its job. That's really one of the keys. With Harvey not having filed their reports for so long, citizens don't have the information to say, are things going well? Are things going very badly? And in fact, they're going very badly in Harvey, which is millions of dollars behind in their payment for their own water bill. So it merits checking, merits paying attention to.
There's been an endless number of stories written about the actual number of government units in the state of Illinois. Does the comptroller's office have any either legal or influential kind of ability to change that?
I think so.
By change, I would mean reduce.
Yeah. Going the other way seems to be easy, right? Yeah. Yeah, and here's the avenue, is that the comptroller's office is the one place where all of them come with their financial records. I've chaired, back several years ago, the governor called for large-scale school consolidation, which made some of us a little bit concerned in more rural parts of the state. And I said, let me chair that commission, let's see what we can do, let's focus on efficiency and effectiveness, and let's see what we can come up with by way of improving the ability to consolidate, or by way of getting districts to be able to work together to save some money short of consolidation. And it was a great lesson going around the state, and we had hearings all over the state. Everyone's testimony would start off angry, like, don't consolidate me, here's why. And then when you listen past the anger, you got to, here's what we're doing. And that's where we really got to some of the good ideas. There are districts that share superintendents right now. So there's a lot that's going on in terms of efficiency, that if we can promote those ideas, we can get to, if not consolidation and fewer units of government, then at least the efficiencies that would be obtained by fewer units of government.
Are there laws in place now that are stumbling blocks to those efficiencies and or consolidations?
There are some laws, particularly with regard to schools. It is in some ways beneficial in terms of tax revenue to have a separate grade school district and a separate high school district. So that is one law I can identify that moves us in that direction. There are some laws that allow you to tax more if you create a new district to have that tax. But there are very few laws that stand in the way of intergovernmental agreements that allow people to work together. It's something that we worked on when I was on the city council in Carbondale, to be able to share some services with the park district. They're not exactly the same boundaries, but pretty close. And why don't we take advantage of sharing some of those services?
Talk a little bit about the campaign. Are you getting home much, or how's it going?
Not getting home as much as I would like to, I have to say, only because I'm on the road a lot. And you know, I knew in the beginning that this would be a very challenging campaign. I'm running against an incumbent, which is a challenging thing to do. So I've been training. I see this as we're now in the home stretch of the marathon that I have been training for. And although it's really much easier than a marathon, I should probably note that for the record. But it takes a lot of stamina. It takes a lot of ability to get up early, be out late, shake hands with everyone, make every stop at the gas station a campaign event. But that's also part of what energizes me. Right? I get to meet people all over the state who, despite the reasons to be negative about Illinois politics, who are still very much engaged, very much willing to roll up their sleeves and make Illinois government work better, make it work for more people.
What are you hearing from the people that you're meeting on the campaign trail? What is the feedback you're getting from them as to what they're looking for?
Definitely one of the things that I hear, well, people appreciate the message about accountability, for sure. That just rings true with audiences that are Democrats, bipartisan, no political affiliation. There is a lot of anti-incumbent feeling out there. That's something that you certainly sense. And that, I think, is to my advantage here. But there's still interest in making it work. You know, this race is not the first one that people are paying attention to, right? So I get a lot of people who say things across the range like, "Wow, I bet you're a shoo-in." Well, no, I'm not a shoo-in. It's good to be a Democrat in a Democratic state, but I'm not a shoo-in. And then people say things like, "And who is that guy that you're running against?" Well, I'm not running against a guy. I'm running against a woman. And so people are now tuning in to the fact that we've got an election coming, and that's a good thing. I think they'll make decisions on these lower down the ballot races a little bit later, so we're in prime time to communicate.
Now, you talked about the anti-incumbent kind of attitude. Well, not incumbent in that position, you are still a statewide officer, kind of what role does that play, kind of not being a complete outsider of the system? Do you think that has any effect on how people are viewing it?
Yeah, I think there's a real difference in this race between me and my opponent. She's been engaged in the political process for 30 plus years. I've spent much more time being a teacher at SIU than I have been a full-time politician. So I think that's a difference, that's a positive thing that I bring to the race that I think people appreciate.
Talk about, we don't have a lot of Southern Illinois natives in statewide office. I think if I count, it's you and perhaps Dick Durbin if you count
Right.
St. Louis as downstate. So why is that important, and what do you see as the sort of clout of our region, and what can you do in that role to keep an eye out on us?
Yeah, I think it is an important part of what I do. What I have been doing as lieutenant governor. Often I am the only Southern Illinoisan in the room. For example, yesterday in Springfield we had a budgeting for results commission, a commission that I've been on for I think 4 years now. We had an open hearing in Springfield, and people came down from Chicago. There was one Springfielder there as well on the panel. But we're talking about how to measure the success of government spending, how to measure alcohol treatment, how to measure domestic violence programs, so that we can be making rational decisions about our spending, so that we're engaged in getting to the results that we want to get to. There are real differences between providing social services in the city of Chicago and providing social services in Jackson County, Williamson County, Alexander County. And one of the big differences is transportation, right? That it takes a lot of resources and time just for clients to get to the service provider or the service provider to get to the client. And we have no public transportation to get people around. So often I am the person that's the reminder. You can't paint with a broad brush. School consolidation, when people say, well, let's just establish a minimum number of students per district. I'm the one who reminds them, well, you know, we have already, I think it's 11, maybe more, county-wide school districts. That's a large geographic territory. I don't think we want to tell those districts that even though they still have a small population, that they need to expand beyond the county's borders. So just knowing the geography of Southern Illinois is a useful contribution a lot of times.
The NARS education bill has actually come up.
Oh, yeah, this is it. Thank you, Katie. Senate Bill 16, State Senator Andy Menard, he's been down here to talk about it. Yeah, okay, yeah. A real significant step forward, I think, if we can get that passed for not just Southern Illinois and not just rural parts of the state, but parts of the state that don't have a significant real estate tax base. And that can be rural Southern Illinois, that can be urban East St. Louis, and Andy Menard's bill really says, let's prioritize state funding where the need is. It's a principle that is hard to disagree with, and I think will get us in a better position of making sure that education is a priority across the state, and not just for some people in some places.
Voters continually say that they don't like negative campaigning, and kind of a quick glance through your folder, you know, it's about 30% Sheila good, 70% Judy bad. So how do you kind of address that and deal with it and kind of navigate through it?
Yeah, I try to be positive when I'm talking with folks, but there's also a role for making comparison. The fact that there's not transparency with regard to expedited payments is a legitimate policy discussion to be had in the course of the campaign. And I respect someone who's dedicated 3 decades of their life to public service, but I have to say a pretty clear line was drawn for me when I saw that videotape of her asking the governor for a job for her son at SIU of all places. I think maybe that's what rubbed me the wrong way. That was significant for me, and that I think has demonstrated to me why I need to be very clear about what the choices are, and so that's what I'm trying to do.
You know, you talked a little bit about anti-incumbent sentiment out there, and you've also talked about that it's good to be a Democrat in a Democratic state. But is that anti-incumbent sentiment gonna be a factor against the Democratic candidate this time around? I mean, what's the mood of the population?
I think we'll have to wait and see. I think that's something that, that is a force that's out there. And I couldn't, I'm not very good at making political predictions and would certainly not make predictions at this point in the governor's race in particular. I see lines shifting and redrawing, and we'll just have to wait and see what folks are responding to.
I guess in a statewide race that doesn't have quite the profile of the governor's race, people are gonna, well, party loyalists are gonna vote their way. So the challenge would be swing voters. I mean, how do you appeal to them?
Well, I appeal, you know, one of the things that I run into a lot is folks who remember Dad. And it doesn't mean that they're gonna vote for me, but it opens the door for a conversation, because the most consistent thing that people tell me they remember about Dad is his honesty. And so they have this image of there's an Illinois politician who could do the job, represent us, and be honest about what was going on. And I get this from Democrats and Republicans. The Republicans will often say, I didn't always agree with him, but I appreciated his honesty. So that allows me to have that conversation about ethics, about the importance of what I've been taught along the way, what I've been trying to do as Lieutenant Governor, and what I want to do as comptroller.
Not just in here, but your other kind of campaign website literature, there seems to be what I would think would be a somewhat conscious disassociation with the person that you're the lieutenant of. You want to talk a little bit about that? I mean, you probably foresee the possibility of you winning and the governor losing, so you want to talk about whether that's as well thought out as I perceive it to be?
Well, here's what I'd say. I've enjoyed being Lieutenant Governor. I've enjoyed what I've been able to get done on the job, but problem after problem comes back to money and how we watch over our money in the state, and that's why I've chosen to run for an office that has the ability to have more impact on where we're spending our money as a state. One of my political heroes was Dawn Clark-Netsch, who was the comptroller a long time ago, and
Met her.
yeah, she's really amazing. And when she was ill, we had the opportunity to take her a lot of dinners. My husband is a very good cook, right? You can vouch for this.
Yes, he's a good cook.
So we took a lot of dinners to Dawn and got to talk with her about the possibility of running for comptroller. And she said her favorite part about being comptroller was to be the best educator in the state about the budget, to be able to talk with citizens, to talk to the reporters about where to shine a light. That's why I'm working on comptroller here. And I think it's important to be an independent person in that office, no matter who's going to be on top, right? You have to be willing to speak up, speak out, and I've got a record of being willing to do that.
Can I ask you about a purely local issue?
Fire away.
You're a Carbondale resident, and
Uh-huh.
you've probably been paying close attention to efforts to improve the downtown. What's your impression of the process, and are you encouraged by what's being discussed?
I am. I'm particularly encouraged, and I didn't get to go there, but I heard a lot from many different people who are engaged in that discussion about the arts and a focus on the arts. I'm a big fan of Nancy Stemper and Carbondale Community Arts and what they're doing with their new place. I'm certainly, I wouldn't say a regular, but I sure like going to the stage company productions. So I see reasons to be optimistic about Carbondale's downtown, and I see a lot of people engaged in it. And we have, I'm someone who is really all over the state. We've got a downtown that some communities just don't have, right? There are just a lot of communities in central and southern Illinois where the downtown is just a shell, hollowed out buildings not being used. And we're at a much different point from that, and we have the opportunity to make it even better. If we don't have any more questions, I'll add one more thing, and this is, when you talk about the comptroller, the current comptroller often is regarded as trying to save money and trying to eliminate her own office, but this is samples of things that were at both the Springfield State Fair and the DuQuoin State Fair. Her backpack, we've got coloring books, if we've got, do we have the, take a look. I don't think we've got the brochure about her consumer advocacy office, which is
overview part.
all right, anyway,
You can't have the coloring book, that one.
and actually you guys can just look, but you cannot keep, this is part of our roadshow. Yeah, exactly, you will not be seen wearing this backpack.
You have more than one coloring book, you probably could leave
Would you
one.
like to have one coloring
No.
book? Gary, it's all yours.
John claimed it first.
Anyway, for a person who claims that she's out to eliminate the office, one of the things she did was to establish a consumer affairs division in the comptroller's office. On the website and in the brochures that they distribute, they say it's for consumer information. Her publicist says a different purpose, so I'm not really sure what the purpose is. But the treasurer's office has a consumer affairs division. The attorney general's office has a consumer affairs division. I think in the state of Illinois, we probably need one, and the most appropriate place for it is at the attorney general's office. So that's one of those easy places to cut. I've cut my budget as lieutenant governor by 30%. Reduced the number of employees I have. I think we've still been able to maintain the services that are required. It's not been easy or comfortable, but given our budget situation, I think it was what was required. And I'm looking forward to looking with a close eye at what goes on in the comptroller's office.
You don't have a lieutenant governor calendar or coloring book?
I have no lieutenant governor calendar or coloring book, and I have to say my staff has for the state fairs often proposed things that would be really cool, and I've been the wet blanket and said no.
Was
We would love to do pet adoption, but.
Right, right.
Was this paid for by campaign funds, or this is?
Printed by the authority of the state of Illinois.
Interesting.
Yeah.
How much money could be saved by eliminating this kind of stuff? Is it a lot?
You know, I don't know that it's significant. I hope it's not. I hope there's not a whole lot of money going to this. I can't imagine the backpack is cheap.
We tried to buy them.
And you
I
decided not
couldn't
to.
afford them for
Yeah.
our event.
Yeah, right, so,
But we saw them. I was at the fair for 14 or for
Good
11
work.
days. I saw those bags.
yeah,
So you're saying that's our tax dollars at work?
yes, this is the seal of the state of Illinois.
That bag was also one of the giveaways?
Yes,
Right,
everybody had them at the fair. I can
Wow.
attest to that because I staffed our booth
Yeah, yeah, and you know, it might be just symbolic, but sometimes symbols are important. When I started as lieutenant governor, there was one furlough day a month for the state employees, and so I had 1 day's worth of my pay taken out, and then that stopped. Not because we fixed our budget, it just stopped. I think there were too many complaints. But I don't think all of a sudden we're in a better spot, so I have continued every month to write a check back to the state of Illinois for 1 day pay per month. And that doesn't result in a huge savings for the state, but I think it's important to acknowledge that there are better things we can do with our money.
They had popcorn too at their tent.
95 degrees, salt was good.
Yes.
It did turn hot just in time for
Yes,
the
it
state
did.
fair, for the DuQuoin State Fair. Springfield was cool.
Let me ask you this.
Yes.
If you get elected,
Uh-huh.
Will you try to bring House Speaker Mike Madigan down here for a visit?
You know, he came down here for a visit to the Public Policy Institute. Gosh, it had to be 8 years ago or so.
That's before I got here.
Yeah, and I was struck by the fact that it was an unusual thing. You know, this is an area where I've shown some independence. As a part of the Reform Commission, we debated about term limits, and I'm in general not a fan of term limits, with one exception, and that's the folks that we can't elect, and that's House and Senate leadership. And we recommended as a part of the Reform Commission, based on my recommendation to the Reform Commission, term limits for legislative leaders. You know, we can vote against someone, we can run against someone in our districts who we vote for, but none of us in this room have a vote on whether Mike Madigan is going to be the speaker. And I think to establish some turnover there would be a good thing for the state of Illinois. That does not make me very popular among legislative leaders, but I think it's the right thing to do. Just like the Fair Map Amendment, I was a supporter of that. Again, did not make me the most welcome person at the Democratic Party picnic, but it's the right thing to do.
Well, I'll follow up with that question. Does Madigan know that Illinois actually exists south of Springfield?
He does, because I think he's spending a lot of money in our state house race right now, right? He is good at math, and he understands making majority in the House, and I think you're seeing a heavy investment in Bill Kilquist's race because of that. So he is fully aware that we're down here, but we should get him to visit more often.
Will you try?
I will.
You would try to do that for us?
I can try to do that for you. No guarantees. I will tell you that President Cullerton, this is the first year that he hasn't been to the DuPoint Fair in a long time. He comes down on a regular basis. Judge Gilbert was his college or law school roommate. So he's got
like that.
regular connections in Southern
And
Illinois.
we've seen him regularly.
Yeah.
Not this year.
Yeah. Christine Rodonio, I know, has been for a talk at the law school. So we're a big state. People want to know more about it.
All right. Do we have anything else?
Katie, anything else I've left out? All right, good deal.
Thanks a
All
lot.
right, thank you. Thanks for the time.